Hey everyone, Gene here. Welcome back to the Evil Within. This is an Akumu, no upgrade, no locker, no flashbolt, no freeze bolt playthrough on the PS4, and we're at chapter 6. Alright, this chapter is really long, it's really hard, there's a ton to say. This video is going to clock in at about 40 minutes, so I'm just going to pile on the information, the strategies, all that good stuff here. And in the last chapter, that big fight took place almost in the middle of the chapter, but the hard part here is going to be the first thing we do. And it is the hardest part of the game, bar none. I don't even think there's anything close. There's a fight in chapter 11 that is also very difficult, but even that I don't think is even anywhere near the level of what we see here at the beginning. So I'm just going around and I'm collecting some ammo and some resources. There's shotgun ammo hidden in this box that's hanging from the roof here. So if you just shoot it, it'll fall to the ground, you can collect it. So this part coming up, one reason it's so difficult is for two reasons. So for one, it's in two parts and there's no checkpoint whenever you beat the first part. And part two is what's really difficult. So every time you fail, you have to do part one again, and it's just demoralizing. And eventually you just get annoyed. So then you start dying to part one, and then that annoys you even more. So there's that. Also, this whole chapter, there's so many enemies that the game can't even handle it. This whole chapter runs really poorly. So, and you're going to see that even at this part coming up. And then later it's going to be even worse. So there's a lot of reasons this part's so hard. I definitely recommend for this part, go into it with a little bit of every resource you have because you're going to need everything. And you definitely want to know how these environmental things work because right here at the beginning, I'm going to show you how to do a trick with the barrels and how they work and their ridiculous hitbox also. So right here, I'm just making ammo, basically making sure I have everything ready. I typically don't like to use all my trap parts because I like to have a couple in reserve, just in case something comes up. But here, this is the part that you need the resources for. This is the part in the game where you want to spend everything you have, so I figured I might as well use them all. So right when this part starts, this guy on the left, he can do any number of things. He can throw the axe at you, he can charge you, he can go right for a grab, go for a melee, he can do some kind of mixture of the two. So you have to watch what he's going to do. And you see I shot that barrel, and as you can see the hitbox on it, hit both of them. Like watch this. Like it's a huge hitbox. It can hit both enemies as they're coming out of the windows. And then I run around to the side to kite that enemy into it. So that way I don't have to use any more resources. Also, you can kick the barrel after it's already on fire if you want to do it manually. So here I'm going to kite these enemies around the room to buy myself some time until I can get a good shot off on all of them. Because what happened right there was one enemy was going for Joseph. And if an enemy hits Joseph, it's going to prolong this part further. If you keep him safe, it's going to end quicker. So if you see one going for him, you have to take care of it right then and there. And so right now I'm kind of just doing a bit of a juggle. I'm juggling the position of the enemies and my stamina because stamina gets too low. When it gets to a point where I know it's not going to recover before I have to sprint again, then I just get a shot off regardless of how good it is. But right there, I had the stamina, so I decided they were all in a good enough position I could just shoot them all. So right here, again, I'm just kind of thinking over what I want to do. So I'm going to equip the explosive bolt. I'm going to shoot one over in front of Joseph. This way it's going to let me know if an enemy's going to get near him, because I'm going to hide back in that corner that I came from. Shoot these two enemies to get them away from me, because those two start very aggressively. I'm kind of going to hide out in this little corner. So I would have liked to plant an explosive bolt there at the door, but an enemy stepped into my line of sight right as I was firing it, so that didn't work. What's nice about this corner is that if there's an explosive or something near around the corner, you can just go right around that corner and you'll be safe. So here it's basically just funneling enemies into here. It's risky because obviously if they get too close, you have nowhere to go, but at the same time, this works really well for traps and things like that. And right there, when he says there's twice as many of them or whatever he says, more enemies are going to come. Like that's when the larger majority of the enemies are going to start spawning. So I throw 2 grenades out here. I don't know if I really hit anyone, but the grenades have such a huge AoE, I figured I probably did. I also heard that explosive bolt went off, so I went out to check, and I was going to use a harpoon to pick that guy off from range, but Joseph already killed him. And you see right there, I take advantage of the narrow space, use a shock bolt, and I kill 4 enemies with 1 match, which is awesome. I was really happy with that. And that enemy hit her delayed fall, got in the way of my shotgun blast to that other enemy, which is fine. It still got through to him, and I still killed him. And right there, I somehow didn't swap to the handgun when I wanted to, so I wasted a shotgun shell, but it's alright. So now I know that the part is winding down. So I'm just using all my shotgun ammo because I figure the shotgun's not that important for the next section, so I just blow it all. And I just wanted to play it as safe as possible, so it may not look that hard, but that part is, in my opinion, by far the most difficult section of the game. It's seriously, on a first playthrough on Akumu, you're going to feel helpless. The combination of the small environment and the number of enemies, it's just really overwhelming. One thing about that part that is really meticulous in how it's designed is that when you're using flash bolts, it's a good panic button. So if you're surrounded or there's enemies kind of in weird positions, you can just shoot a flash bolt anywhere. They'll all be blinded, and you can kind of just reposition or think of something new to do. Enemies spawn in at that part, like they trickle in 1, 2, or 3 at a time. They don't all come in at once. So if you're in the habit of just shooting off a flash bolt because you can't think of anything else to do, well, you're going to run out, and that's not a good strategy because enemies, when you fire one off, more are just going to come, so it's not going to matter. So right there, not having the flash bolt really wasn't a big deal to me because I knew that for that part, it wasn't going to save me. It does have its use, don't get me wrong, but it's not the be-all, end-all at that part. So here, I'm going around and I'm disarming all the traps. I'm not going to use these against the enemy. I want them all for trap parts because there are 2 bosses in this level, and I want basically the boss killer bolts. I want explosive bolts, and I want harpoon bolts. And I'm not going to be coming through here with enemies. This is a large area where you can go one of 2 ways. Actually, you can go more ways than that, really, but you can go one of several ways. But I'm not going to be going this way to lure the enemies. So I know that since I'm not going to be coming back through here, there's no reason to not disarm them. Basically, you have to shoot 4 of these enemies who are up in these, like, cages. And you don't have to kill all the other enemies. So enemies come here, it's what seems like indefinitely. So I'm just going to rush this part. I'm going to rush to the 4 enemies you have to kill. And I'm just going to lay down a couple traps along the way. And then at the end, I'm going to pick off the remaining enemies. But I am not sticking around to fight any normal enemies. So right here, I think most people would probably go off to the right and go around. But it's easier if you come down these stairs and take care of this guy right now and get it out of the way. So I shot him. That's down. I'm going to make an explosive bolt real quick. I'm going to plant it right at the bottom of these stairs because there's going to be 4 or 5 enemies that are going to chase you. So I'm going to rush up here. I'm just going to avoid that trap because you can come back to that after this part's over. And enemies are going to come from both sides, and they're just going to keep coming. And you can knock enemies off these edges by hitting them with a melee, but I'm not stopping to do that. I'm just going for it. And right there, that's all 4. The only problem is that now I have to get over to the exit point, but I don't want Joseph to die while I'm going there because he's surrounded right now. So I'm just trying to take care of these enemies, just trying to buy some time. He's almost dead, so I have to heal him. And I'm really annoyed right here because I want to just book it to the exit, but I can't because I don't know for sure if he's going to follow me. And he can get knocked off the edge as well. And then if that's the case, you have to run back over to him and help him up. So I didn't want that to happen either. I think these should be the last couple enemies. I'm just going to try and right there, I shot him with the handgun while he was near the edge, so he just fell off. And right there, he ran away from the edge, so I didn't get to shoot him off the edge, but that's alright. Still walked away pretty cleanly, I'd say. Not the best performance in the world, but what can you do? And right here, I did a little trick. Basically, I used a checkpoint. I basically abused a checkpoint. If you go in there, that initiates a fight with the sadist, and the doors lock. But the checkpoint activates before you go in there, so I'm going to go around this whole arena, and I'm going to pick up all the resources. There's a shock bolt. There's quite a lot of trap parts. I think there's some ammo as well. So I'm going to get quite a few trap parts in this section, and the trap parts in this run are primarily, they're either for a small stun or for boss killers, essentially is how I view it. So the explosive bolt is primarily going to be your boss killer in a run like this, as well as the sniper rifle, which I just acquired. So that being said, with those being your two boss killers, you have to keep in mind that they both have really big weaknesses you have to look out for when you're fighting a boss. So the explosive bolt has the obvious one where it can kill you if you're too close to it. And that may seem like an obvious weakness, but the thing is with this game is every boss in this game is very quick. They all have some kind of lunging grab or some kind of lunging attack, and you have to really time when you're going to use them. It's better to use them more as a trap than an actual direct shot in most cases, because if you stick them to the enemy and then they get near you, you're dead. So that's the weakness for the explosive bolt. And then for the sniper rifle, you have the problem of needing to reload after every shot. So you get locked in place whenever you take a shot, and while you don't have the direct threat to yourself like with the explosive bolt, you're slowed down enough where it's that same window of a boss charging you that you're still in danger. So the high damage weapons still have these big weaknesses that you really have to take into consideration. You know, if you want to use a shock bolt to stun an enemy, to use those weapons, you know, it'll take more resources, but you'll be safer. Which, funny little side note there, if you come back to this save point, a rock falls on it and you can't go back in there. But one thing I wanted to say real quick is that, and I'll show this later, when some bosses are in certain stun states, like when they're shocked or they're burning, they actually take less damage. So that way, it's kind of this risk-reward thing where if you're risking leaving the enemy unstunned, you get to do normal damage. But if you want to play it safe and stun them, you're going to deal less damage. And right here, the sadist comes out. I kick the barrel into the arena, that way I can use it. I'm trying to kick it over to him, but I'm trying to play it safe right now. And as you can see right there, if you want to do a dance around these little fence posts, it's not going to work because he just destroys them anyway. There's some ammo over in that corner, but I'm waiting till I can get some time to do it. And right here, I somehow run out of stamina. So luckily he was far away, so he couldn't kill me. And here I am just trying to kite him back into the barrel, since again the fire stays lit. So I have some leeway to actually use it on him. And really what I should have done, now that I'm watching this, I should have used that time that he was burning to come kick this one over further. But then I had to risk that, and I almost got hit right there. So when he's doing those kind of wild swipes, those are actually pretty easy to dodge. His grab, though, his instant kill, is obviously much harder to dodge. And this guy's just ruthless. Like, the harpoon bolts don't stop him. I'm trying not to use too much sniper rifle ammo because I really need it for the boss of this chapter. There's a trick you can use against that boss, and the sniper rifle is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. And like I said, the sniper rifle is the boss killer, and the sadist isn't really a boss, so I didn't want to use such valuable ammo on him. I decided, well, I can use all my harpoon bolts since I know there's a few more coming up later in this chapter that you find, and they're the cheapest bolt type, so I figure why not, might as well just use them. So this next part is going to be a little easier. There's a strategy that it's kind of funny. The game really wants you to go one way about it, and I just say, no, I'm going to do the complete opposite. Yeah, and the next couple chapters after this are thankfully a lot easier and not as stressful. I appreciate how hard this game is, but this chapter is like really pushing it in terms of just being BS sometimes. Like, this whole chapter runs poorly because there's just too many enemies in some of these spots. Like that last part where I had to destroy those four enemies in those cages. The game runs really, really poorly during that whole section, especially if an enemy has like a Molotov or Joseph's attacking someone. It just really brings the game down to a crawl. So right here I'm just deciding which bolts I want to make. I have 11 trap parts, which isn't a ton, but it's a lot more than I've had during most of this playthrough. Really don't need many bolts until the bosses. So right here, in this part coming up, I'm going to try and take advantage of the handgun as well as the enemy positions, and then I get to use an enemy weapon on a different enemy.
Do you think Kidman is okay?
This strategy came from me just simply saying, well, what if I just did the opposite of what I'm supposed to do? And it ended up working out really well, so it's kind of funny. Although before I do that, there's this part where you have to kill these two enemies coming up
Just a little further.
after this cutscene, and I forgot when this part started that you can use the handgun. So, again, like, this game, it's one of those games where you think you have to do things a certain way, but you really don't. So right here, you just get the sniper rifle, it's far away, you can see a box of sniper ammo right there to the left, so you think, oh, I have to use the sniper rifle. I miss a shot here, and then right after this, I just remember, like, wait a second, I can just use the handgun. So I step over a little further, I equip it. I don't know what that was. I wanted to restart the chapter because I wasted ammo, but I was like, whatever. See right there? I got that critical shot on my first attempt. Enemies that are in kind of these weird situations that are far away, or they have certain ones that have dynamite, they'll actually have less health than normal enemies. And again, I think that was intentional. If you don't have the ammo or if you miss, as a last resort, you could equip the handgun and go for a shot and it'll still work for you. But I forgot to equip it first and do that as my primary strategy. So I wasted a couple sniper rounds, but it's okay because the boss at the end of the chapter still goes really well.
Should have just let them.
So right here, coming up, this is the part I was talking about where I just kind of go in the opposite direction of what the game wants. So you'll see Joseph and Sebastian running one way, and I'm just going to turn right around because I don't have a lot of trap bolts or anything like that, so I don't really have a lot of opportunity to capitalize on stuff like that. So I'm going to use the handgun to get these enemies because both of them start out sprinting. One drops an axe, so I'm going to use that right away. And then these two, I'm going to wait until because this is such a narrow little pathway right here, I'm going to wait till they're both in line, hit them with the harpoon, get collateral damage, and then I'm just going to come over here, and this guy also has a weapon, so I'm going to use that to kill the last enemy. And like I said, I don't particularly love to use all my matches on singular enemies in a playthrough like this, but in those last few sections, there was just not enough time for me to even throw the matches. Like you'll see in the part where I was killing those four enemies, I really didn't use any matches because there's just no time, especially if you're going for a strategy where you want to just kill them as fast as possible and get out. There's no time to use them, so I figured I'll use them here. The sections with regular enemies is about over for this chapter, so I figure I don't need them now. And then in the next two chapters, you fight enemies who you really don't need matches for, which I'll explain, which is a super cool little detail. So I figure I'll just throw them all away, use them all I can. I don't want to use bolts on these isolated enemies. Like using bolts on isolated fatties or a doppelganger, that's one thing, but to use it on isolated normal haunted, I figured that's just a waste. So I just used my matches instead. It's funny when I talk about this game and the resource management side of it because this game is almost like a math problem. Like you have to balance. It's like you're balancing your money. Like you have to figure out the most effective way to buy things and the most cost-effective things and how long something's gonna last and all that stuff. It's like a mix of. It really is a mix of skill and strategy and planning. It's just the combination. It's why I think this game resonates so well with me. Um, a lot of third-person shooters just don't have the same. That's those same elements to really speak to me. I don't think, and it's a shame that this game released in the state it did, because mechanically, like not talking polish. I'm not talking controls. I'm talking strictly mechanically. The systems in place, the balance, the viability of things, the details, the overall design. I think this game is about in its own league in a lot of ways, but the the game really does have some control issues. This whole chapter is poorly optimized. Like I hate to say it, but so like one of my dreams would be for this game to get this like ultimate 60 FPS kind of remaster, and even maybe take a part or two out, maybe elaborate on a couple parts, stuff like that. But even like if I were to dream about mechanically what I want the game to do, I can't really think of much. I mean, every system is just so good. I don't even know what wishes I would have. I know it makes me sound like a fanboy, but I mean, I've played this game so much, and every time I play it, I'm just amazed at the things I learn, the tactics I find, how useful every little thing is. It's crazy. But a remaster with 60 FPS, some cleaned up animations, all the clipping gone, stuff like that, that would be awesome. Maybe one day. I mean, we're getting a remaster of The Wonderful 101 of all things, which I still can't believe. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm super excited for that. If we could get that, I figure we could probably get a remaster of this one day, maybe. I don't know. I don't know anything about programming, but I know that a lot of that is simply the game's engine, from what I understand, and I don't know if that's something you could just fix with a remaster, so I don't know. So the parts with Joseph are about up. You have one more section after this where he's kind of with you, but you really don't have to worry about him dying. So that's kind of nice. I really don't mind these two chapters where he's with you. It adds another layer onto the things you have to manage. So not only are you managing your resources and the combat, your stamina, and all these things, you have to pay attention to him as well. And you could say it's like an escort mission, but he does fight back, and you can heal him, and he takes some of the aggro off of you, so I'd say it's a fair trade. Like that fight in Chapter 5 I do really like, even if he is included, because it gives you just one more thing to think about in a fight that's already pretty hectic. And that's a good example. Like, the fight in Chapter 5, I think is great. It's that perfect balance. Like, it's difficult, it's varied, but it's short enough to just be like this quick burst of just like adrenaline. But that burning building in this chapter, that's just too much. There's too many enemies. They come in way too, like, their placement is really weird. And again, if this game was remastered and we got a version that was really cleaned up, then that part would probably be a lot better. But as it stands, the part just doesn't run well. Those first two enemies that spawn in when you're on the bottom floor, the game just like dips down so hard when that happens. And it really kind of messes with your focus. So that's my one thing about this game. And I agree with the criticisms of is the game's, the stuff surrounding its technical aspects.
Let me climb up here and see if
I don't think it's anywhere near enough to drag the game down a lot. Like, nowhere near what people make it out to be, but at the same time, it would be nice if it was cleaned up. This chapter is by far the worst offender of it, so luckily past here, it's not that big of an issue, in my opinion. Chapter 15 has a fight that's a little sketchy, but it's okay. It's not as bad as here. So at this part, there's going to be enemies that rise up out of this water, which you have to slowly walk through. I recommend not even fighting them. I just shoot a shock bolt right down next to me, and that way anyone who gets near me is going to get caught in it, and then I don't have to worry about it. Just walk right away. You might be able to burn some of the bodies before they rise up out of the ground, but it's easier to just do one shock bolt, I think. So here we come to the boss before the boss. You have to fight these two giants. I forget their name, but one's going to burst out of this door here. And I like to throw down an explosive bolt kind of far enough away so that he doesn't activate it immediately, but close enough to where when he starts coming near me, then it detonates. So I don't want it to activate right there. So right here, it's going to just, I'm going to shoot one on him and it's going to detonate both, which I didn't really want, but I guess it still worked. And again, these enemies charge you just like most bosses, so you have to really be careful. When he's on the ground like this, you can't burn him. It's just gives you opportunity to finish him off. And you have to get out of here quick when he's dead, because this other one's going to burst out of the wall right there to the left. And you need to get out and get over to this section and get through this little crawl space here. So Joseph here is supposed to kind of distract them, but for some reason when I was doing this, he was not doing a very good job. So I had to come out, basically take one quick shot and go back in, because you can't shoot while you're crouching in this game, which I guess you could say that's stupid, but I think it makes sense. If you were to just be able to crouch behind something from far away and shoot at enemies, I think that would probably be a little broken. Again, it's better to restrict players in some ways than to just let them do what they want. To me, game design and balance and good game mechanics, it's all about the balance between your freedom and your restrictions. The restrictions have to be meaningful and impactful, and your freedom has to let you be creative. If you can just do whatever you want, then the game's not going to be interesting at all, and it's not going to be challenging. But anyway, there's a box of sniper ammo on the ground, and I knew that has 5 rounds in it, so I figured I'll leave a couple rounds to myself, and then I'll grab all those when this fight's over, because I want all the rounds possible for the final boss of this chapter. So I'm just kind of going in and out, popping a shot here and there. And I don't want to stay out for longer than one shot, because you can see he's sprinting. When he's sprinting and he just touches you, you just die. Like, he just, like, blows you apart. It's really odd, but it kills you instantly, so I'm not taking my chance. If I had more explosive bolts, I could have made, like, a row of them on his pathway in here and taken down a serious amount of his health beforehand, but I didn't really have any, so I didn't do that. Also, I don't know if I had enough time, because he busts through that wall pretty quick. Because usually you'd fight both of these enemies out here. I think the common way to do this is when that first enemy busts through the door, you just run right past him off to the left and you come into this room, and they're both out here. But I don't do that, I just have the one out here because that first enemy I like to just kill with traps right off the bat. So right there's 5 sniper rounds. I have 7 now for the boss. That's the only thing left in this chapter. There's a trick to killing it that I'll show you. It's pretty easy. He moves kind of weirdly, just like most enemies in this game, but you can do it. If you practice it for just a few fights, you can do it pretty easily, I think. There's going to be some cutscenes and a puzzle coming up, and I'm going to edit through most of it. But I'm going to collect some resources first. We got some explosive bolts hanging out over here. I definitely want to grab those. Again, it's going to be your main boss killer on this run, so you always want those on hand. I'd say out of all the bolts, the explosive might be the most interesting in the sense that it is the only trap that damages enemies, but it's also the only one that directly hurts you. So you can lay down a shock and freeze bolt to trap the enemy. Like, you can lay it in front of a doorway and then it'll freeze them or shock them as they come through. The explosive bolt will damage them, but it also, obviously, it's the one that poses a threat to you. Also, it's the only trap bolt that has a timer. So if an enemy steps into a shock or freeze bolt, it's going to just take effect immediately. But the explosive bolt has a timer, so enemies can run past it or get away from it before it blows up. So the explosive bolt it's like a lifesaver, but it's also probably the hardest to use. So always be cautious when you use it. Always have space. Always know where the enemies are going to be going. And especially during a boss, make sure you don't stick it to the boss if you know it's going to hit you. I actually stick an explosive bolt to the boss in this fight, but he's far enough away and I know that there's no way he was going to catch up to me. And speaking of that boss, we're about there. It's going to end the chapter. This is the longest chapter in the game, so this is probably going to be the longest video. Even editing out quite a bit of it, it's still going to take almost 40 minutes. Like, it's a really long section. There's so many enemies in this chapter, which is funny because chapter 8, which is coming up pretty shortly, by contrast, is incredibly short. I think you can beat that chapter in probably 5 or 6 minutes, maybe even quicker. Whereas this took me over an hour, so yeah, that chapter's more like a little break. But anyway, here's the boss. This guy's name is Sentinel. So the trick to this boss is you want to get away from him, get away to the opposite side of the arena, and basically he's going to hide in these bushes and he's going to charge at you. So get out the sniper rifle, and when he's very close to you, just shoot him anywhere and he's going to tumble over. You have to wait till he's close to you though, otherwise it won't work. Also, there's a bear trap right in the middle of the arena, so make sure you disarm that because you're probably going to step in it otherwise. There's also a shock bolt laying against that little thing there, which is great for... You can use that, just put it right in front of you, and he's going to step on it. So, I end up utilizing that here shortly. And I try to shoot him while he's just kind of repositioning, but I miss. But again, you can see where he's at. The bushes are going to shake, and he's going to just come at you at a straight line. Sometimes he goes off to the side slightly, and when he does that, I recommend, while you're aiming, move Sebastian left or right. Don't actually aim left or right, because moving is a lot quicker than actually aiming the sniper rifle. So if he slightly gets out of your view, just walk a certain way. Don't try and aim. You see right here, I'm going to use an explosive bolt here in a second, and I knew since he wasn't already charging me, I was like, he's not going to catch me in time, so I got him, I stuck him with it, and now he's dead. This last part, you just have to go back into the arena and get Joseph's glasses, because Joseph, of course, he's a nuisance. You're always doing stuff for him. Come on, Joseph. No, he's alright. But yeah, you just go in here, you grab this. I've never been hurt by the boss when I've done this. I think as long as you just get in and get out, there's really no harm. I mean, he's going to basically block my path through the door, and he still doesn't do anything to me because he's distracting him. So, again, just sprint in, sprint out. You'll be fine. So that's going to wrap up the parts with Joseph. He'll come back in chapter 12, but it's going to be different. But in terms of actually having to kind of defend him, those parts are over. So that's chapter 6. Chapter 7 and 8 primarily involve a new enemy type that have entirely different properties than the Haunted. So I'm going to explain all of that and how to deal with it. Right there, I accidentally picked up a freeze bolt, so I just shot it in a corner somewhere, so I didn't use it. But yeah, a lot of new explanations are going to go on in the next chapters because those enemies function very differently than everything we've seen so far. A lot of cool tricks against them that don't work against the Haunted, and some things you have to watch out for. And I really love the next few chapters. In my opinion, chapters 7 through 10 are the best parts of the game. So that'll be a lot of fun. If you like the video and you want to see more, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.